What is up, everyone? It has been kind of a long time. I apologize because I know I said in my last video I was going to try and make videos more often, but I'm going to explain to you why I disappeared a little bit, and that is because I've learned that I only have one day to record, one day of the week. And if I miss that day because of homework or some other reason, I don't get any other chance to record throughout the entire week. And for the last 2 weeks or something, I've been missing that day. So unfortunately, I'm gonna, once again I said I have no idea what my schedule is right now. But yeah, I'm gonna do my best to hit that day when I can, and when I can't, you just won't see a video, and it's just how it is for now. I apologize once again if I'm talking low. Like I said before, it's the walls are thin. But I'm also certain I'm coming down with something, and so my throat kind of hurts right now. And I'm not going to strain my voice, but I hope you can hear me, and if not, turn your volume up, you know. Okay, so today's topic is something I've been wanting to talk about actually before I made that video about me moving. I saw it on a past video from a user whose name I can't remember, but it's a topic I wanted to go over because it's actually something very close to my heart, I guess you could say. And that is designing a character to submit as a fursuit quote, or designing a character that is fursuit ready or fursuit makeable, or however you want to spin it. The reason I want to talk about this is because as a maker, I see so many designs and I know exactly what and what cannot be realistically made into a suit. And not just realistically, sometimes which could translate well into a suit, because even if a design can be done, doesn't mean it's gonna look good. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about the things you should do to create a design that will not only make a fursuit maker happy when building, but also might help you get picked by them. Now, before I start talking about anything, I'm gonna say that this video is going to be about submitting your design to a fursuit maker. I know there are a lot of makers who watch these videos, so if you're a maker yourself and you can make fursuits, you can do any of this stuff. You can literally do whatever you want. It's your suit, you're the maker, you know your limits, go crazy. But I'm talking about those people out there who are specifically submitting their designs to somebody else to make. So please keep that in mind when you hear me talking. If you want me to make a video about things that you as a maker can do, maybe I will, or maybe I'll just talk about that at the end. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, just remember that when you watch this, don't comment and be like, oh, I can do that. It's like, yes, I'm sure you can do that, but we're not talking about that today. Okay, so I'm gonna try and go through the step-by-step process of creating your character to submit for a fursuit design. We're just gonna assume that you don't have a character yet and we're gonna build one. I'm not gonna try and give you tips on pre-existing characters. So we're gonna start from the ground up. So the first thing, we're building the character. The first thing, and it's actually one of the important ones, is the species. The species is actually gonna play a pretty big role in which species is actually gonna play a bit, oh my god, I can't talk. Species is going to actually play a bitty, I'm dying. The species is going to play a big role in which if your design gets chosen or not. And I know you probably don't want to hear that, but it's true. It's really sad, but it is true, because a lot of makers play favorites with species. They won't admit it, but it's kind of obvious. And the thing is you gotta learn which species your maker is a fan of. And I'm not saying that just because you don't have your maker's favorite species, it's never gonna get chosen. I'm saying that if you have said species, you have a higher chance of being picked. Now, species is a very, like I said, it's a case-by-case thing. And it's very important to look at your maker's past work when choosing the species of your design. Say you want a reptile and you want to pick, the maker that you have chosen for your character is very good at dogs and cats, but has only made one reptile to their name. Do you want to pick that maker for your reptile character? Probably not. If you're feeling like they can do it, they're going to be great, then power to you. I'm glad you have faith in them. But it's always a better idea to play to a maker's strengths than their weaknesses, because yes, makers do like taking on new challenges. They do like making new species and the chance to do it, but that doesn't mean they're always the best at it. So yes, you're giving them experience. Yes, they might be enthusiastic about your design, but you probably shouldn't expect an amazing suit out of that species. Not because they are intentionally sabotaging your character because they don't like that it's like a dino or whatever. It's because they just don't have the experience yet. And you, as the customer, need to know that going in. So always do research on a species before you submit that quote to the maker, to ensure that you both have a good time, both that they enjoy making your character and both that you're going to get one out of it that you really enjoy. I'm also going to list out here, I'm going to say that there are a lot of species who across the board will probably get you in the good graces of a lot of makers just because they're really popular and there's like maybe easier to make, I guess you could say. And those species are German Shepherds, Huskies, a lot of different kind of big dogs, wolves, coyotes, I'm trying to think of the big cats now, lions, tigers, hyenas are a fan favorite, African wild dogs are becoming big. So those are just a few species that if you are like, even if you want an artist design character, if you suggest those species, most makers are pretty, solid in those. So those are always safe bets. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is going to be really important, but let's go over what you have. You now have your species, and let's just say for a minute it's going to be, I don't know, a husky. Okay, so you have your species down. The next very important thing is your design, and that brings me to this topic, choosing your fur color wisely. Listen, I know that you want to make your character a certain color, but there's over, I don't even know, there's millions of colors in existence, and there's only a couple hundred in fur. There's a good chance that like weird purple color probably doesn't exist in fur. It just doesn't. There's nothing I can do about it. So please, when you're designing your character, do your fur research. Look up the types of fur that exist. Look up the colors that exist, because I can guarantee you that not every color exists in fur, and you're going to be very upset to find that out when you're doing your fur research and you realize you can't find that perfect matching shade of green. I also say this because when you're submitting, say that you didn't do any fur research at all and you made your character this weird off shade of yellow and then some shade of blue that doesn't exist. Well, guess what? You just submitted that design to a maker who is knowledgeable in what kinds of furs exist and don't exist. They see your design and they say, hey, I don't think I want to take on this design because I know these furs don't exist. I know it's going to be hard to color match them, and I don't want to waste time for that. So guess what? You just lost your chance to commission them. So I highly suggest doing your fur research beforehand. Maybe if you are in contact with your maker, say, hey, where do you buy the fur? Maybe I can look through that and I can color match for myself. Because if you do by chance get a maker who takes on your design and decides to spend the time and color match with you, that can take months. That can take forever. I have personally dealt with more than one customer before who I have had to spend over a month just color matching with them because their furs did not exactly exist like they did on their design. It's a long process. Sometimes it can be really tiring, and in the end, you might still not even come out with the colors that you originally intended. So that's why I'm stressing the importance of doing your research beforehand and making sure you have a character who will translate well into actual physical fur. Now, if you have a character who's just straight up raw G-bib, like regular colors, red, blue, yellow, just across the board, you don't have anything to worry about. Just submit that design. I'm not sure if they'll pick you, but you definitely have a better chance. But if you know that you have 9 shades of brown on your fursuit, you're probably going to be in for a time trying to color match that. So always make sure your maker's either willing to color match with you or that your design is already fursuit ready. And speaking of colors, I'm also going to say that make sure you know what color you're putting where on your design. So say you have a husky and you want him to have white feet. Well, guess what? If he has white feet, especially indoor white feet, those feet are going to get dirty. So if, say you don't want his feet to get dirty, maybe give him like blue toes and a blue underside of his foot. That way when you're walking outside, it'll be harder to see. Or maybe give him like black toes instead. So always make sure you know exactly where you're going to be putting that fur on your suit, because the main areas of a fursuit that get the most stress are your underarms, your crotch kind of area, and probably like your back. So if you want to make sure that your fursuit is staying clean longer and you don't have to like be there every single wear, scrubbing it down, put darker colors in those more worn areas, I would suggest. Okay, so now we have our species. We're a husky. We have our colors. He's just going to be a normal gray husky with black feet, and that is super doable for a fursuit maker, and it's super easy for anybody to read. Now we're going to get on to the third part, markings. Markings are always fun. Honestly, I think they spice up any design, no matter how simple or complex. But when it comes to a fursuit, here's the thing. Simple is better. Fursuit making is awesome, but it can also be arduous, and that comes when you have to do a million markings. Now, if you have a character who's just a straight up tiger, like he's just a normal tiger, you're gonna have a lot of stripes, and that is understandable. But what you're gonna wanna do is, if you have a character like that, you're gonna wanna simplify. That's the big rule with markings. Simplify. Unless you're making your own suit and you know your own limits, you'll always want to simplify your markings. If you have stripes going down all your arms and all your back, the less stripes you have, the easier it's going to be on the maker. And yeah, it might not look like amazing, but it's still going to get the message across. If you're somebody though who really wants that real life detail stripes, you're going to have to get into something like airbrushing, which can get those tinier details, but not every maker does it, so you're going to have to check and see if your maker is willing to do that. Same goes for things like spots. If you're a cheetah, yeah, spots look good, but you're going to have, they're crazy to do, especially if you're hand sewing them. So I highly encourage you, if you have a design with multiple markings, to simplify them as best you can, but still get the message across. Then you come to markings, say, that aren't natural. You have like, I don't know, like some kind of tribal tattoo or some kind of like paw print or whatever you have on your character. Those are all fairly simple, and I definitely suggest putting them on. If you have like a big paw print on your back, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you start having tiny paw prints going up your arm, that's where it gets hard. And once again, simplify it. Do your best to bring it down and make it as simple as it can be, but still effective. I feel like I probably shouldn't be preaching about this, because if you've seen my past suits like Ahaha and Apple, you've seen that they both have insane detail sewn into them, like lettering and plaid. So, but that's because, that's how I know that intense markings can be an issue, because what happens is if you have a lot of markings on your suit, especially the stripy, spotty ones, the ones where they're really tiny and they're really close together and they're all over the place, every time you cut into the fur, you're causing it to weaken because you're cutting through the fibers holding it together. And that ends up in, what else? Holes. Holes everywhere. Your suit's gonna be looking like Swiss cheese. That's why I say simplify them. There are ways to make a ton of markings like that that isn't airbrushed, that's still hand sewn, and to, what's the word I'm looking for? To back it, to make it stronger, but I still suggest simplifying it, because even if you're your own maker and you're gonna hate yourself. You're gonna be up at 4 a.m. sewing these spots in all before the sun. You'll be like, this was a mistake. Moral of the story, make sure your markings are simple, but still clear, and I can guarantee you'll still feel good about the product in the end. And so will your maker in making it. Last thing I'm going to talk about for your fursuit ready design is add-ons. This isn't going to apply to, like, say, a husky character that we have, but this is going to be things like horns, wings, spikes, anything like that, even stuff like extra arms, anything that's, not normal, I guess you could say. So those things are all fine and dandy, and don't feel discouraged about putting them on your design or like asking about them. But here's the big thing with those. Make sure you're picking a maker who is experienced in them. I've seen many a maker try their hand at them, especially for the first time, and they just didn't work out. And that's it's not your fault for submitting them, but make sure your maker is not only knows what they're doing, but is also comfortable with that. And also see if they've done it more than once, because chances are if they've done it once, that means yours is now their second try, and second tries aren't always the complete fix from the first try. So always remember that when submitting things like wings. Also, as a designer, I highly suggest looking into, especially for things like wings, smaller the better, because you might think those big dragon wings are going to make you look awesome, but I can tell you, as somebody who owns a suit with big dragon wings, Sometimes they can get heavy. Sometimes they can lean in, lean kind of over your shoulders. They're not always super comfortable. So I highly suggest going smaller. I personally have figured out a method of making really tiny, really light wings, and I am going to be using them for all future suits I make with wings. They're really easy to make, and they're super fun to wear. I can also suggest maybe like little baby wings that people sew into the backs of suits. Things that you'll see on suits like angel dragons, those type of wings. Those are good alternative for the big scary wings. But like I said, there are makers out there who have done giant wings. I've seen them done successfully. Just know who your maker is when you're submitting for something like that. The next thing is the horns and the spikes. Horns themselves aren't a big problem. A lot of makers have done them to varying degrees of different kinds of horns. I would just make sure your maker knows exactly what kind of horns you want and they know how to do them. But the thing with spikes though, is especially if you have spikes coming down your back, think about it this way. Yeah, your Godzilla characters, your kaiju is going to look pretty cool with those spikes going down his back. But guess what? When you sit down, you're not going to be sitting down like this. You're going to be sitting down like this. Spikes, anything on your back is going to hinder you from sitting down properly, especially if like they go down your tail. Now you have a tail that has them too, so you're sitting like this with your tail, you're sitting like that. So if you're okay with that, all the power to you. Just keep that in mind when submitting for a character with a bunch of back spikes. And I think that's it. I think that's all the big things that I see in fursuit designs that I want to address. I hope you all keep stuff like this in mind when you're submitting your own designs to makers to help you get a better chance of being chosen and making your suit more comfortable for you when you get it. As I said before, these are all just my opinions. If you want to go submit a maker, a four-armed, back-spikied, winged, like nine-eyed demon, go for it. You're going to get the response you get. But yeah, I hope this could help you start designing your own fursuit character. And like I've said before, if you're unsure and you don't know what your maker likes to do, ask for an artistic liberty design. They'll love to work with you. They would love to design a character for you, and you'll both end up with a character you enjoy. And once again, I said, if you're your own maker, do whatever you want. I showed you my two examples. I can guarantee you that neither one of those characters would probably ever get accepted by another maker. So if you want to go crazy, I highly suggest doing it. It's fun, and it puts yourself out there as somebody who's done something different. So that's it for this video. Like I said, my 1 day a week recording time. I don't know the next time I'll get it. I don't know if I'll hit it next week. But if I do, I'll be back with another topic of interest, I guess you could say. So until then, bye!